Welcome into the bedside table. I am your host, Ellie Marie. And if you've seen me before, well, welcome back. This is the bedside table, just a quick little description of what this podcast is about. It's a comfy, cozy space where I share some little tidbits of knowledge that I've accumulated throughout the experiences I've had within my life. We have fun, we get vulnerable, we talk about important things. All happens here at the bedside table. So thank you for joining me for episode 13. I almost said 12. Episode 13, lucky 13 or unlucky 13, whatever your superstitions are. We're going to say lucky 13 for this podcast because here I'm all about spreading some good vibes, some love, some happiness. My phone is a little bit further away. Well, I'd been recording the last couple episodes in this this new setting that I've been recording in for the past couple of episodes. I've been recording with my phone further forward and at the 0.6 times zoom, if that makes any sense. So I'm doing just the normal zoom. So my phone's a little bit further away. Anyway, irrelevant, but welcome in if you're new and welcome back if you're returning. Thank you so much for being here. To all of my peeps, newcomers or not. Oh, there's duckies outside. Oh. I live my apartment is right next to a pond, and I always have my blinds halfway up because Dorothy, she likes to look outside. And honestly, I like to look outside. I wouldn't have seen those little duckies if if my blinds weren't up. Oh my gosh, they're so cute. There are always ducks and geese right by this little pond, but they decided to run up a little closer to my apartment than usual, so that was a cute little thing to behold. So anyway, we've got a couple of good topics for you, as always. Some really good topics to talk about. And I can't wait to get into them. So let's go.
You got me feeling a fight. You got me feeling a fight. Like how could I not think of you? You got me feeling a fight.
Dorothy is making herself comfy on my lap. Dorothy is my cat, by the way, for those of you who are listening. She making herself comfy for this episode. No, she's very, very cuddly and needy right now because I'm a pet sitter and I'm currently at a pet sitting stay right now. So how it works is that I usually stay overnight at people's homes for a certain amount of days, and so I'm like a pet / house sitter basically, but I'm there to just take care of their animals. So right now I'm currently on an 18-day pet stay, and I'm almost done, almost. I'm more than halfway done. So she's been by herself for almost 2 weeks, and this is the longest day I've ever had, and I'm checking in on her every other day. Every other day I'm making sure she's got enough food and water. She has a little water fountain that holds a lot of water, and she has an automatic food dispenser, so she's got food and water. But I come every other day since it is such a long stay, and I just spend time with her. So that's one of the reasons. Not only am I here recording this podcast episode, but it's also some time I get to spend with her too, because she is very affectionate and loving. And of course, our animals, we're the only people they see. They live with us, so she does get lonely, I know, and I miss her too. But yeah, so she's on my lap, and she's really enjoying the time we spend together while I'm on this long stay away. But she's been doing great. I try to give her as much loving as I can when I'm here. I love you, baby. She's so sweet. So sweet. All right, so our first topic I'm going to get into, it's a little bit of a complicated one. I think it's just different for everybody. But it's important. It's important to talk about. It's important to say. So here it is. Do the hard stuff now. Get it out of the way. Do the hard stuff now. And what do I mean by hard stuff? Well, I could mean a plethora of things. But if your mind's in the gutter, get out of there. We're not in the gutter today. We're talking about the difficult things. Pretty specifically, the difficult adult things that we all have to do. You know what I'm talking about. You don't? Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't even know. No, we're gonna talk about this, and I'm gonna talk about it obviously from my own experience. So it's gonna be different for everyone, because when I say, do the hard stuff now, get the difficult stuff out of the way now, something will probably pop up for you when I say that. It's probably those things that you've maybe been avoiding doing, those things that you kind of dread, or maybe it's like the mundane things, which I've talked about the mundane things in one of my first episodes. I talked about the mundane. And the mundane, not really mastering the mundane, but if you can just get through changing your mindset about the mundane, which is kind of what I talked about in one of my previous episodes, it can really change things for you and your life. But that's that episode. But I bring up the mundane because when we talk about the difficult things, the mundane things probably are a part of that list. So this is like the things that just never really end. It's like, the never-ending dishes, the never-ending laundry, the never-ending cleaning. And I say it's going to be different for everybody because we're all at different levels of how we like things. So how clean and organized and how often we want things done. And also our priorities are different. So sometimes there's something else that's more of a priority than doing the dishes or doing the laundry more regularly. So sometimes our priorities are not regularly keeping up with these things, because I feel like maybe if you have like health issues or if you have like chronic pain, I think those are things that probably need to be prioritized over doing the dishes every single day. You can probably go some time without doing the dishes or doing the laundry to prioritize something that's, excuse me, I'll have to cough real quick. Sorry. My throat I'm getting better. I don't know if you can tell. I'm getting a little better. I think my ears are finally starting to unplug, and I've been coughing things out, trying to get it all up. So I feel like it's getting better. I'm not coughing as much throughout my day, but it's really, really slowly just taking its time to get out of my body. So doing my darndest here, okay. It's funny, my husband and I have been talking we've been talking with country accents as of late. It's just been really fun. It's a fun accent to do. It's fun and it's silly and it's goofy and I like it. But yeah, so I think doing the difficult things, when I say get those things out of the way first, it's probably going to be different for everyone depending on what your priorities are, what kind of difficult things, what kind of issues you're facing right now in your life. So for example, with me, I'm working a full-time job. I'm working 45 hours a week, very, very early mornings. I'm going to be starting school in summer, so I'm going to be taking some classes online, and I'm going to be taking 1 or 2 classes on campus throughout the rest of this year. And then I'm doing the podcast, and then everything else outside of that, maintaining my space and spending time with loved ones and socializing and friends, things like that. That's all going to also exist. So when I say do the hard things first, it's probably, again, like I said, it's going to depend on what your priorities are and where you're at in your life. So I'm going to be prioritizing saving money. That's why I'm working. That's why I'm back to working full time and working those 45 hours a week. I want to save money because I'm trying to get a car. Because if you don't know, I drive a moped. Oh my gosh, it was so cute. I was on the drive over here. I was coming from my husband's apartment and I was driving over here. And there was this old man walking down the sidewalk, and he saw me and my moped, and he had this big smile on his face, and he waved at me, so I waved back at him. That happens pretty often, just people on the side of the road, or people walking down the sidewalk or the street. For some, my moped just kind of makes them smile. It's a pink moped. It's a cute little pink moped, and I'm driving down with this like big white helmet on, and it's cute, okay? It's adorable, just like me. But it's so sweet when I see them, and when they have just like this big cheesy smile on their face, I always try to wave back. If I see them in time, I'll wave back. I thought that was sweet. It's like, oh, my moped makes people happy. Or at least, they like it, I guess. I thought it was cute, but, what was I talking about? Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to save up money for a vehicle. So that's why I'm working full time again. And then once I start also to pay for school, because my first few classes are going to be covered by this scholarship that I won through my job. Woohoo! So I'm pretty sure most of my classes for the rest of this year are covered. I think I have maybe $200 or $300 left over that I'll have to cover. But that's amazing. If I can get, like 6 classes in and the majority of it be covered. Oh my God. Heck yes. So I'm saving up money for a car, and then also preparing for when I'll need to pay for schooling. I intend on getting loans. I think that's the plan, but I also just want to have money saved up too for emergencies and stuff. So that's why I'm back to working full time. So I'm going to be working full time, and then I'm going to be going to school, and then I'm also going to be keeping up with the podcast. So those are kind of my top priorities, right? My top priority is going to be work, school, and the podcast. I'm so sorry. I have to cough again. So I think it's important when we talk about, okay, do the hard stuff first. It's like, well, what does that look like for you? What are your priorities right now? And how can we fit in doing those difficult things within your life already and within your priorities? So breaking down for me what I think the hard stuff has been and what I'm still currently doing. First of all, it's the inner work. I know it's the healing. I know it sounds cheesy and corny, but it's important work to do. It's just introspection, taking a look at the decisions that you've made in your life and trying to understand why you've made those decisions, understanding yourself and who you are, what you like, what you don't like, understanding the wounds that you still carry with you from your childhood, or even just the pains and the hurts that you're still holding on to. What are you feeling? How are you doing? Just like checking in with yourself and doing this work. It's going to be different for everybody, what kind of inner work you need to do. But I think that's definitely one of the much more difficult things that if you start sooner rather than later, I think it'll be better for you in the long run. This isn't me saying, get out there and do your inner work. Although I'm advocating for it. I'm advocating and I'm encouraging you to at least get curious about, well, is there some work I need to do? Quick answer, yes. There's work that we all need to do all the time, because none of us are perfect human beings, and that's totally fine. That's totally cool. We're not here to be perfect. And maybe when I say like inner work, maybe that makes you feel like, oh, no. Maybe it makes you feel like that, and that would make sense. It's okay if it's like just an initial response is to kind of reject the notion or the idea of looking within and figuring out like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? That might be a lot. It might be a lot to just do that, to see where you're at on the inside. That might be a lot. And if it is, hey, that's totally okay. I'm not saying like you have to do some deep dives right now and figure everything out. No, it's very slow. In my experience, it's slow and it's gradual work. I have 2 workbooks specifically. I have the Loving Parent Guidebook. Amazing. It was recommended to me by one of my therapists. And then both of my workbooks were actually recommended by the same therapist. But the Loving Parent Guidebook, and then the ACA workbook, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics, but it's also for dysfunctional families. I've been going through those 2, and very, very slowly. And I've been going through them as I have the time, or not really the time, but kind of the mental space and the energy for it. So again, like I said, sometimes my priorities are other things. So, and sometimes I prioritize doing that inner work above other things. But it's not just about sitting down with workbooks and like figuring shit out that way. It can be that. And those workbooks, especially the Loving Parent Guidebook, that's about like inner child, inner family work. Having that book and actually like that workbook and going through it and like learning about the inner child, learning about the inner family, and the fact that it has meditations in it, and it has like little exercises that you can do to like connect with your inner family, like your inner child, your inner teenager, your inner critic. Maybe these phrases mean absolutely nothing to you, and maybe you know some about inner family work. But specifically, the Loving Parent Guidebook, that one has been so beneficial for my inner work, because I had already started, I'd say I'd started my inner work with like meditation. And that I was interested in through like the yoga channels that I was watching on YouTube. So like Yoga with Adriene and Yoga with Cassandra. And then I started watching Dr. K through my husband, actually, and he does a lot of meditation, and he used to teach meditation on his Twitch streams. But I really got into, anyway, rant, tangent, I was already into that aspect of the inner work and just like that aspect of being with myself. So like yoga and meditation, I was already interested and into that. So when I was going through the Inner Parent Guidebook, and those elements like the meditation and affirmations, like those elements I could say included. Those elements were included in the workbook. That just resonated with me so well. And I think that made it a better experience for me and made it more beneficial, because I was like, oh, yay, meditation and affirmations. Like this feels like the path that I've already been on. So it just feels like, okay, yeah, this is a good next step, is to go through this workbook. And I'm, like I said, very slowly, very gradually going through it, because it's tough. And it's emotional, and it takes emotional and mental effort to do healing work and to do inner work. So again, I'm advocating for it and encouraging you to start somewhere if you haven't, and if you're on that healing journey and you're doing some inner work, yay, congrats, that's amazing. And I'm proud of you, and keep going. And if you haven't started yet, that's totally okay, but I encourage you to. I think that's again, like I said, I think that's definitely one of the more difficult things, that if you can start, at least just start working on it. Again, it's going to be slow and gradual in my experience. It's not going to be this quick thing that you do, but I think the sooner you start, the better it will be for you in the long term, in the long run. I have to cough again. Hold on. Excuse me, sorry. So that's one of the more difficult things. When I hear get the hard stuff out of the way first, that's definitely one of the things. And that's just something that I've personally been working on for the past, 3 to 4 years now. It's just that inner work. And it's had such an impact on my life to just take a look at myself and just look at myself and, understand myself a bit more. That's really, helped me figure out my life a bit better. It sounds so self-explanatory. It sounds like common sense when you say it like that. When it's just like, oh yeah, you start working on yourself and suddenly you're able to tackle life a bit better. Wow, who would have thought? But you really, really start to understand it as you're doing it. And that's part of the journey, I think, is as you're doing it, you find more to work on within yourself. And for me, it's become more of like more of a thing that I'm like, okay, what else can I improve on? And it's not like that every single time. It's not like that every single day. Like I'll get upset about something, or something will set me off or trigger me. And I'm just like, in the moment, I'm just like mad or frustrated, irritated, or I'm sad. And there are days when I'm just like, can I just not feel like this right now? Can I just like, but it is a process, and it's not about eliminating it's not about eliminating quote unquote bad feelings. It's more about learning to embrace all of it. And that's not easy, especially for somebody like me. I don't like feeling bad. And sometimes I feel bad. And I'm like, can this stop now? I think maybe a lot of us can relate to not wanting to feel bad. But I think that's part of the reason why I do the work, is so I feel more capable to endure the feelings that have been more difficult for me to accept in the past. So yeah, that's a big old thing about inner work. And I think specifically for me, but I also think maybe some of you may agree, sorry, I've got phlegm. My bad. I think doing that inner healing work and just doing some inner work is one of the more difficult things, if not one of the most difficult things. So I started with the most difficult thing of like, get the hard shit out of the way first. I think some other things, just to touch on it a little bit more, if we can, I talk about, again, like I said before, I talk about the mundane more in length I talk about the mundane more in length in one of my previous podcast episodes, but if you can find some peace and maybe just like a little bit of joy within the mundane, I mean, you're setting yourself up there, because the rest of your life, there's going to be the mundane. You're always going to have something mundane to do. Always, I feel like, unless you just, I don't know, have a private chef or unless you just like eat out all the time and you have maids and housekeepers and you have people keeping up with your lawn and like, but even then, if you have someone doing even those things, so if you have someone cleaning for you, cooking for you, even if you have that, it's like, well, what about like gardening and stuff? Like, what about those little time consuming things that you like actually enjoy, like playing an instrument? That's time consuming. What if you're learning something new? Those things become like, those things are mundane. Those things are repetitive, time-consuming tasks. When I think of the mundane, that's what I think about. I think about a repetitive, time-consuming task. And generally, mundane for me can be categorized as like maybe a new skill that we're learning, or a hobby that takes patience, that takes time to do. So like gardening is all about waiting. It's about maintenance and patience. That's gardening. And I feel like there are so many other things that are about maintenance and patience. I can only think of gardening right now, but maybe you can think of some other things that are mainly just like maintenance and patience. You maintain them and then you wait. And I feel like that's a mundane thing. But we can find some peace and some joy in those things. Maybe it becomes a little therapeutic. I bet a ton of you probably feel therapeutic when you do something that's considered mundane, something slow, something that takes your time, that slows you down, that demands your presence, that demands your attention, but it demands it slowly. Does that make sense? Or do I sound like a crazy person? But yeah, like something like doing the dishes or folding laundry. Like those things have become a bit therapeutic for me, especially doing dishes. And I have to do dishes at work. And it's always one of those things, like, you know, it's mundane when you think about it and you're like, ugh. Or if you look at it, you look at the dishes in the sink and you're like, I know I have to do it, but I don't wanna. And it's so funny, the resistance that comes up when we look at something and we're just like, ugh, no. It's funny to me. even if it ends up being something therapeutic or something that like is somehow beneficial to it, like makes us feel kind of good, kind of better, maybe not even better, but just like at peace. Something that we can like just do that makes us, I don't really know how to explain it. I'm just talking about doing dishes, but like when I do something mundane, like doing the dishes, it's like I'm just like thinking about some things, and then I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm like observing my thoughts, and like I'm with myself, and it's just like I just kind of get lost in the chore, and it doesn't really feel so bad, or it doesn't feel so mundane anymore. It just feels like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this thing. And then afterwards, not only do I feel good because I've done the thing, it's like, yay, I did the dishes. It's like I had, a little moment with myself and my thoughts, and got to kind of check in with me and have a little fun in my imagination sometimes, So I think if you can not only start doing the mundane things early, so like start building these, I think that's the direction I had planned on going in, was like start doing dishes early. Learn how to do your laundry early and get it done. Do this shit first. You guys know the book Eat That Frog? I think it's called Eat That Frog. My husband hasn't. I don't think he's read it, but I've started reading it. When I go over there, I read a little bit of it. And it's basically that. It's like when you wake up, do the thing you don't want to do the most first. Do it. And I think that's the same concept of like, do the hard shit. Do the hard shit now. It's basically the same concept of like, do the things that you do not want to do those first. Get them out of the way. So, but in terms, that's the Eat That Frog is more in terms of like day to day. But I do think like, do the hard shit first. I kind of wanted to go in a direction. I'll touch on it a little bit. Sorry, I'm derailing a bit, but this is this podcast. It's mine. I get to derail whenever I want. And you're just here for the ride. Thank you for being here. But so I'll touch on it a bit because it's been like 30 minutes. I'm so good at this. No, it's fine. I'm on a little bit of a time crunch because I'm, like I told you before, I'm pet sitting, so I have to be back at that house at a certain time. But if I stay a little bit over, it's okay. But yeah, in terms of, I guess, figuring out, that can just be, yeah, we can talk about it like that. That can just be another one of the hard things to get out of the way, is like, figure out your habits. Like, figure that shit out, dude. Figure that out. And I know not all of us are me, and not all of us are looking for like things to be a certain way when it comes to like cleanliness and organization. That's just what I like. I like things to be clean and organized to an extent. It doesn't have to be pristine or perfect, but it just feels better for me when I have a more clean and organized environment. If my environment is nice, it makes me feel a bit better on the inside. It's less of a stressor. It makes my mental space also feel a bit better. And I don't think that's just a me thing. I think that's like a mental health thing, kind of. I think it is a thing. I think like the spaces that we're in and the environments we're in, they obviously have an effect on us. But I think when it comes to cleanliness and organization, I also think that has an effect on us. Again, though, I don't want to sit here and assume like all of us want to be clean and organized. But also, I think cleanliness and organization is different for all of us. So I think we can be clean and organized in different ways. Excuse me, I have to cough again. I don't have my tea today or water. I should have gotten a cup of water, Ellie. Jeez, I'm talking the whole time. It's like comedians up there on the stage. They got themselves a bottle of water, a cup of water, so they can sip some water anytime that their throat gets scratchy. Their throat gets scratchy. Yeah, my throat is scratchy. Can you tell? I've been talking a lot. I don't know why I didn't get me a cup of water. I was just like, no, I don't want to have a cup of water sitting here. But now, are you regretting it, Ellie? Now, do you see why you needed the cup of water? I might get up here in a second and get myself a cup of water. Because we could let's take a quick little break. I'm going to grab myself some water. Thank you for your patience.
Like how could I not some type of way from the songs. It's too early days and I can't seem to keep my mind off of you. It comes and it goes, but it's never gone. How can I go on without you? Please don't let me. Please don't let me. You got me feeling a fight. You got me feeling a fight. Like how
Was she making biscuits? Were you making biscuits? You are so stinking cute and I love you. All right, I've stopped torturing myself and I got some water. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for being here again. So yeah, I was talking about get your habits in check. Get your shit together. Basically. No, I'm kidding. Sort of. No, I think, but that's also just like do the hard stuff first. Honestly, that's another phrase for it. It's just get your shit together. And like, that's going to look different for everyone. What's the shit that you need to get together? Well, only you know. And maybe some of your more loving observers in your life, maybe they have a few words about, you know, what you could work on. And this isn't to say that they're coming from a place of judgment. I hope they're not, but we're only human. So sometimes the people that love us judge us because we're only human. And I think we all judge. Yes, getting off track here. Hold on, let me drink some more waters. So yeah, in terms of figuring out the hard stuff, it's going to be different for everyone. But I do think those few things that I talked about, I think, yeah, those are some really good ones to start with. Probably some of the harder ones to start with. So just to recap and summarize, inner work, healing some wounds, maybe specifically some pains and some hurts that you carry from your childhood. If you grew up in dysfunction or chaos, or even if you didn't, maybe you've got some things anyway, and it's okay if it's little things. But just taking a look inside, introspective work, healing, whatever that is for you. And I hope that you explore it and you find something that kind of resonates with you and helps you uncover the dirt inside a little bit, helps you clean out the moosh. The moosh? Moosh? What the frick is moosh? I was gonna say mush, but it came out as moosh. What is that? Moosh. It's funny, but so inner work, healing work, and then finding some peace and maybe some joy within the mundane tasks of our lives. And the mundane, it might change as we change and grow. The mundane may become different. So maybe the mundane won't be dishes and laundry, although I think dishes and laundry are going to forever exist for us. That's just, I think that's just something we can all agree on. I think we're all always going to have to deal with those things in one way or another. But, yeah, so find some peace and hopefully some joy within the mundane. And then get your habits in check. Get your habits together. Figure out your routines and your habits for every day. Figure out what you want your day to day to kind of not necessarily look like, but feel like. What do you want to be doing with your life? That's a really big question, isn't it? I didn't mean for it to come out like that, but just think back on the last year or two of your life and think what have I been doing every day? You know? And how does my day look like? What do I do when I get up in the morning? And what do I do after I get home from work? And am I working toward these goals? Am I doing the things that I enjoy? Am I liking my life right now? And it's okay if that answer is no, not really. And it's okay to make little small changes over time. Please don't make the mistake that I've made so many times and just try to make so many changes at once and expect it to be like, yeah, I can totally do this. It's going to be, easy. Because I get in this little habit of getting really motivated to change my life, and I'm sure some of you can relate. I get in this habit of feeling very motivated. I'm going to start working out and eating healthy and going to bed on time and blah, blah, blah. And this, I'm going to be doing this and this and this. And it's like, maybe I do it for a week and then I'm right back to where I was because it's too much. It's too much all at once. And it's too much for me to expect from myself. So yeah, get your habits in check. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to sound harsh when I say that. Just take a look at what you do throughout your day. And if something doesn't feel quite right or you want to do something different, start making little changes and be okay with just those little changes because it'll add up, especially if you're doing it every day or you're at least doing it on a consistent basis. It'll add up. Okay. Well, I talked a bit longer on that than I wanted to, but it was good. And thank you for letting me get up and get some water because I need it. Okay, let's move on.
Could I not think of you? You got me feeling a vibe. You got me feeling a vibe. Like how could I not think of you?
Actually, I thought about this next talking point when I was at work the other day because I've been talking about children, and I've been talking about more specifically like having kids. I've been talking about it more casually, a bit more open than I normally would talk about it. This is more of a personal thing of mine, but I want to explore it anyway. When I was growing up, I remember I have this distinct memory because I remember how much it pissed me off. I remember how much my dad's response pissed me off. But I remember telling my parents, I was like, I'm never having kids. Like, I do not want to be a mom. Like, I do not want kids ever. And I look back on it now and it's like, yeah, that would make sense why 14, 15, 16-year-old me who was growing up in dysfunction and there was abuse happening in the home and like we weren't advocated for as kids and it was not a pleasant experience as a kid. So it would make sense for teenage me to be like, yeah, no. That would make a lot of sense. But I remember how much my dad's response pissed me off. So after I said that, he said, oh, you'll want to one day. He was like, your motherly instincts will kick in and you'll want it. And I think my mom kind of agreed, but she kind of always agreed with my dad. And that's more of that's a deeper thing, I think, that we don't got to talk about. But, so my husband, I have a stepdaughter. So my husband had a baby when he was quite young, and like young for the fact that I was like, oh, wow. I was not thinking about that when I was that age, not one bit, but I'm not trying to pass judgment on it. I'm just saying, I have a stepdaughter. That's really it. So I've had an experience of being a stepmom. And so I've had the experience of having a child in my life, and I met her when she was 5. So I didn't go through, the baby stages and stuff, but I met her when she was 5, and she doesn't live with me, and she's never lived with me or my husband when it was me and him, but we've always been a part of her life, and she's always been a part of ours, and we've spent a lot of time with her, obviously, and gone to like school events and taken her out and helped, just like being a part of her life. It's made me think a bit about what it would be like to have a child of my own. And early 20s, it was still like, no, I don't want kids. Even now, approaching my 30s, I'm kind of just now starting to put myself in a more open-minded place. And so I wrote down this topic of talking about, hold on, I have to read it. talking about something you fear in a more curious, open-minded way. So that's why I'm bringing up having children, because it's a really scary thing for me. There are so many elements to this fear. A lot of it comes from how I grew up as a kid. I mean, I think that's fair. I think maybe I'm not alone here, that a lot of the fear stemmed around having our own kids is just how we feel about our own experience as being a kid. And then looking back on like how my parents were and just the difficulties that they faced in having a family, having children, and then just the fact that, like excuse me, I'm so sorry. Obviously, I am so thrilled that I exist and I wouldn't exist if my parents hadn't had me. Like, that's another thing that I really think about. It's like, I wouldn't be here if my parents were in a similar mental state or a similar like thought pattern of me, of being like, I'm not gonna have kids. No, thanks. Like, I wouldn't be here. So I'm glad that they chose to have a family and that they had me. Like, I am obviously super, super thrilled to be alive, which is, it's funny to think about it in that way. But it also, like, it helps me be a bit more open-minded when I'm like, well, I wouldn't even exist if someone didn't think about, if like two people weren't like, yeah, let's have another kid, and I don't know, I don't personally know their thought process into having, because they had 3 kids, and my dad technically, my dad had 4, but, so I don't know the thought process that went into like, let's have a family and all that. Like, I don't know, getting a little off track here, but, yeah, so I've had the experience of being a stepmom. And so I've had a little bit of an experience of understanding what it would be like to have my own kids. But again, yeah, so that's where I was at. So there's a lot of fear around having my own children. Even just like saying it out loud, just like having kids. It's like so difficult for me, because it's like, it's just, I've just rejected it a lot. Again, like I've been rejecting it since I was 14, 15, 16 years old. I've been rejecting this notion that I'll ever be a mom. Like, no. It's been a hard no since I was young. And so to be that young and to have that stance on having children, I was never the girl who was like, oh my God, I can't wait to be a mom. Like, I had a best friend of mine who, she was my best friend in my early 20s, and that was one of her dreams. She just wanted to be a mom, and I was just like, wow, I wonder what that's like. Genuinely, though, like, the curiosity of just, like, I wonder what it feels like to want that. I wonder what it feels like to, like, feel good about wanting that. To be like, yeah, I can't wait to start this. And she came from a bit of a family of dysfunction as well. And I think we all come from at least a bit of dysfunction. At least some shit happened in all of our childhoods. And maybe that's me just assuming, but it is me just assuming that all of us have had at least some bit of shit growing up. Because I think that's just a part of growing up. It doesn't have to be something like traumatic or dysfunctional. It can just be, from a child's perspective, painful and hurtful. So I think we all have something that we carry along with us that makes us feel a particular way about something in our adulthood. So for me, I have a lot of feelings around having my own children. And it's not because I would doubt my ability as a mother. I think I would be an absolutely incredible mother. And maybe part of me says that to kind of compensate for I don't know, maybe part of me, because when I say that, it's hard for me to say that and feel genuine saying that when I'm so when I'm so kind of closed off about the idea of having children. Does that make sense? So it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, it's hard for me to, on one hand, be like, I'd be an incredible mother. But I am so scared about the idea of being one. It's hard for me to have those two things exist at the same time, but they do. They do exist at the same time. I know I would be an incredible mother, but I'm also extremely terrified to be one. I'm extremely scared to be responsible for a human, for one of me, you know what I'm saying? And for like one of you, like, huh? Whoa, that's a crazy concept. Would I be incredibly good at it? Abso-fucking-lutely. You know why I'd be so good at it? Probably because I'm so scared. I'd make damn well sure. That's not correct. I would damn well make sure. That's also not correct. Who cares? I would make for freaking damn sure that I would do it to the best of my ability and exceed it. That's also just me, though. Kind of. That's me sometimes. I like to do things really well. And it's hard for me to do things if I don't know for sure that I'm going to do them really well. It's why it's hard for me as a creator to literally do anything, because I'm like, but am I good at it? But creating is one of those things, like, you're not going to know if you're good at it unless you do it. And also it's like, how do you know? Like, you don't necessarily have to be good at something to enjoy it. You could just have fun too. That's a hard thing for me to grasp as well. Because my husband and I have had this conversation. He wants more kids. And he's just like, yeah, I want more kids. I love more kids. It's a very easy thing for him to just be like, yeah. And that's just, it just ticks me off, because I'm just envious of that feeling. It's like, I just don't feel that way. And I'm part of me really wishes that I did. And so I think that's why now I'm trying to be more open-minded and more curious, rather than just completely reject the notion of being a mom or of having children, because I do want to know and understand what it's like to have this feeling of like, yeah, I would like that. And maybe I don't ever reach the place where I'm just like, I would love to be a mom. Maybe I don't ever reach that place, but I'm proud of myself for just kind of opening up a bit. Because this, again, has been a very closed off thing for me since I was young. Very closed off. It was just kind of never something I thought about. Never something that I was like, yeah, no. Anytime it would come up, or anytime I think, it'd just be one of those things I would just reject immediately and just not think about. So I'm proud of myself, and I'm happy that I am thinking about it. And then I'm thinking about it in a different way for the first time. I'm thinking about it in a more curious, open-minded way. So even though I'm really, really scared about it, and there's a lot of fear around it, I think opening up a little bit, just to be a bit more curious about it. Just be like, excuse me, hold on, I have to cough. Sorry. But I think being more curious and open-minded about something that I'm so afraid about, I think it's going to help. I already feel, I'm not going to say it's necessarily going to make me, it's not, well, I don't want to say that either. I don't want to have expectations like, oh, well, yeah, if I am open and curious about it, it's not going to change my mind. Like, I want to be open to having my mind changed. Like, I'm okay with that. And that isn't just about having children. That's just about kind of anything in general. It's like, I'm okay. I'm okay if something changes my mind. I'm okay if, like, opening myself up and, like, asking questions and learning more about something makes me change my mind about it. That's okay. Like, it's cool to change our minds. It's cool to do something different than we thought we'd do. Like, we're growing and changing all the time. So for me to sit here and be like, yeah, well, if I'm more open and curious about it, then it might change my mind. And it's like, okay. Like, that's okay. I feel like that's making full circle to talk about like the inner family work. I feel like that's my inner teenager coming out like, yeah, it might change our minds and make us actually want to be a mom. Like, you disgust, like, no. Oh my God. That's so inner teenager. It's so teenage me to be like, no. I never want to do that. I never want kids, never want a family. But now it's like, hey, I'm not 14 anymore, and I don't live in dysfunction, and I don't have to carry that with me, and I don't have to treat my kids how I was treated. Like, that's another thing that helps me reach a place, that helps me make a decision to be more open and curious about having my own family and having my own kids, is like, it's not gonna be the same, and I know that. I know that if I do have children of my own, I'm going, again, like I said, I'm confident in myself to be an incredible mom. And part of the reason why I'll be an incredible mom as well is because I'm not going to treat my children the way that I was treated. Because I know how that shit affected me, and I would never, ever put my own children through that. So it's just hard. It's hard for me to say, like, my children. Like, I'm telling you, I'm trying, though. I'm trying to explore this for myself, but also for my partner, too. Because I know how he feels about wanting to have more children, because we've discussed it and we've talked about it. And I won't talk about that on here, but I'm not just doing this for me. I'm doing it for my partner, too. And I think I like that. But I am doing it for me too. I want to explore getting closer to that feeling of what it would be like to like want a child, or to want to be a mom. Like, I want to be open to that being something that would be me, if that makes sense. Because I've only ever accepted the idea that I'll never be a mother. And that's all I've ever accepted about it. But maybe I could be. Who knows? Life changes, things change. My mind could change, and that would be okay. So I want to invite that in, at least just, bit by bit, because I know how scary of a thing it is for me. But, so yeah. To take away from that, if you're feeling fearful about something, or if you've been fearful about something for a long time, maybe slowly and very carefully start to think about it curiously. Maybe start to just like ask questions. Little questions, small questions, like, So for me, an example would be like, well, if I had a kid, what names do I like? Like, it can be just like little simple things. It doesn't have to be like, you don't have to look up like if you were pregnant, or like, gosh, I don't know how to put it, but like, just start with like little things, like, what would I name? What boy names do I like? What girl names do I like? It's not like I'm over here gonna, like, don't put so much pressure to be like, oh no, now that I'm thinking about baby names, it's like, oh my God, I have to have a baby now, or all this. Like, it's not about that. It's just like, just explore the topic a little. Just whatever you're kind of afraid about, just explore it a little bit. And if you start feeling uncomfortable, if you start feeling like, no, I can't do this right now, like, that's okay. Just step back from it. It's okay. You can come back to it later. You can always explore. But yeah, if you're feeling fearful about something, and it's something that like you haven't touched in a long time, or it's something similar to like my own experience of like, I've only ever had this idea about myself. I've only ever chosen it this way for myself. So like with having children, I've only ever said no and I've like closed the door on it and haven't looked at it again until until I had a child who came into my life through my husband, and then had that experience. And then it was like, okay, slow. And this was over years. It's been like 6 years that I've had this experience of being a stepmom. And that has helped gradually open me up to this idea of like, well, maybe this is something I could consider doing. Maybe. And that's kind of the approach that I've been taking very slowly. It's not even like, oh yeah, I could do this. It's not like that for me. And maybe it turns out to be that way for you. Like you open up the door on something that you thought you never wanted, or something that you were really afraid to deal with, or really afraid to look at or talk about or think about. And maybe when you open the door, maybe it works for you in a way of like, oh, why was I so scared? Maybe it works for you like that. That would be amazing. But in my experience, for me, maybe you take really small steps. So maybe it's just, yeah, I could consider this. And I could talk a little bit about it with my partner, see how they feel. Maybe I could start thinking about this differently. Maybe I'll consider it. Like, that's where I'm at. It's very slow for me. But again, like just the fact that I am reaching this place where I'm becoming more curious and open-minded about it, like I'm proud of myself for that, because it's taken a long time and I'm thinking about it differently. Because like I said, I want to give myself the opportunity to have like motherhood as an option. I don't want to just be like, yeah, no, never. Because of how I felt as a teenager, And maybe because of the experiences I had in my teenage life, in my early adulthood, and with my childhood. Like, I can completely understand why in the past and growing up, why I would make the decision to not want to have a family. I know. I can so totally understand. But I want to give me now, adult me, I want to give myself the opportunity for that option of motherhood to be on the table. Whether I end up taking it or not, I've got to allow myself to know that is an option, because it's not the same anymore. We're not in the same crazy dysfunctional environment that we were in when we made the decision to close off motherhood altogether. We're not there anymore. So I think, and again, like I said, it's been a very slow and gradual nudging motherhood onto the table of like, maybe we take a look at this. Maybe we do. Because I'm having to present it to my inner family, my inner teenager. Like, I'm having to present it to all of me and reconcile what that's like with all the parts of me. And of course, there are parts of me that still reject it. Obviously, I've rejected it my whole life. Of course, there's going to be rejection, but there's a new part of me that is like, hey, maybe we can think about this now. And I love that, because it means like I've healed in some way there, and it just makes me feel so happy, and it makes me feel so good to be like, okay, I can actually open this door, or I can actually like take a look at motherhood and not feel completely repulsed, or not feel just so terrified. Like, there is still that part of me that's like, I have no idea if I would ever want that. But there's a little part of me now that's like, let's just think about it. Maybe. Let's just consider. Let's just get curious. So there's a part of me that really is inviting motherhood onto the table, and I'm happy for that. Because like I said, I want to give myself the other option. I want to make sure that's not closed off forever. Okay. I hope some of that made sense. Oh my God, it's been an hour. I did not expect this episode to be that long, but okay, cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here for episode 13 of the Bedside Table. And I hope you found some value in today's topics. I hope something resonated with you. And if you didn't find any value, and if nothing resonated with you, and you're still listening, hopefully it was a comfy listen for you, and hopefully you had a nice time hanging out with me in my vulnerable space, my vulnerable space. And thank you for sticking around and listening and chilling and watching and just being a part of the Bedside Table. Honestly, oh yeah, so the Instagram's podcast, yep. The pod's Instagram hit 100 followers, and it just makes me feel so good that 100 of you, at least on Instagram, 100 of you are enjoying what I'm putting on there. So if you're not following the pod's Instagram, it's linked in the description below, whether you're listening on Spotify or Amazon. I'm on Amazon. I don't know if people listen on there, but whether you're listening or whether you're watching, it's in the description. But yeah, thank you so much for those of you who are following the pod and supporting the pod on social media. Thank you. It has an Instagram and a TikTok, and I just post like clips and a little bit of behind the scenes. I'm trying to be a bit more active on posting more than just the clips, but yeah, so we're growing a little bit and I'm excited. I really am. This is something that I've just been really happy doing every time I sit down here, even when I'm like, oh, I have to record today. It's just that it's that same dread you feel when you have to do something that ends up feeling good, that you end up feeling good about, that ends up being like therapeutic and beneficial. It's like that kind of thing. But I've really been enjoying being here with all of you and making these episodes and talking about these things, because for the first time in my life, I'm actually comfortable and like I just feel more comfortable with my vulnerability to be able to share, because I don't know if 3-4 years ago I'd be able to sit down and do this and like feel confident, like, oh yeah, this is totally fine to talk about. I know that a version of me years ago would be like, yeah, no, we can't put that out there. Either it's not good enough or it's just not something people are going to like. People don't want to hear this. People don't want to hear about your life. Like, no, no, this isn't ready. You're not ready. Like, that would be a past version of me. And there was still tidbits of that in me when I was doing this, of just like, how is this going to feel? Like, how are people going to feel about this? Or how is this going to reach people? And are people actually going to be engaged? And the comments that I've gotten from friends and from strangers have just helped me stick with it. Not that I'm not going to stick with it, but it's just like, it's been like, oh, it's been like this little, it's just like a bonus to me. It's like this reminder of like, hey, people are listening and people are enjoying what you're putting out there. So keep it up. And so just hearing from, just like reading comments and hearing from friends and people that are watching and listening that do find value in it, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. It just, yeah, it brings me fulfillment. So thank you genuinely for all of you who watch and listen. And I hope you stick around, because I have a lot of life that I've lived and I continue to live life. And there's just so much that I would love to share with all of you. And so much that I think so much that I now really feel like is important to say. Even though it's kind of always been important to say, but now it's like, I'm confident that, yeah, this is the story I want to tell. And I say story, but it's like, these are the things I want to talk about, because I've wanted to talk about them for a long time. So anyway, thank you so much for being here at the Bedside Table for episode 13. And I can't wait to be here again next week. We're probably going to talk about some awesome things as usual. Okay. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time. Bye.